All right, red alert, y'all. Red alert. Did you know that black women are 60% more likely to have high blood pressure, twice as likely to die from cervical cancer, 3 to 4 times as likely to die from pregnancy-related disorders than white women? Like, what are we doing here? And even, because I already know the comments will be full, even if you factor in income and education, like you balance all those out, the numbers are still astronomically different for this group here. That's not just numbers. That's a problem. And that's the truth. Unfortunately, that is the result of a healthcare system that hasn't prioritized and taken care of a population that needs to be taken care of. We talked about this all the time. We already know about the atrocities that our healthcare system that I'm a part of has done to black folks here in this country, right? We already know that, like that's here. But what I don't think people realize is that we are still dealing with the effects of those atrocities today. And today we're going to talk about just how detrimental this healthcare system has been for women, in particular black women. We're going to put some numbers out, right? Because this is unfortunately embarrassing and frightening that just because you're a black woman, you're now at risk, higher risk for all of these things that you wouldn't be at risk of if you're a white woman. That is embarrassing, especially as a healthcare professional. All right, so first thing I want to talk about, one of the key common cogs in our issue with how well black women are taken care of in the healthcare system. And it all starts with bias, like bias. We talk about racial bias all the time, income bias. You turn on TV, they're always talking about income bias. But when you factor in the racial bias and gender bias, and you realize this subgroup gets hit harder than anyone, it's not a surprise, right? These are some numbers. Y'all know I love my numbers. Black women are twice as likely to suffer from heart disease-related deaths, 28% more likely. They make up 28% of all maternal deaths in the United States, despite only being 13% of the female population, more likely to have chronic conditions like diabetes and lupus, less likely to receive timely care. And if it is timely care, if it's adequate, like this is a problem. As a black woman walking into a hospital, studies show that you're less likely to perceive to be in pain, more likely to be misdiagnosed. 2016 study shows that half of the white medical trainees believe myths that black patients have thicker skin, which means they don't. Like this is the reality that anyone who is black walks into when they say, I'm going to step into the healthcare system. Hey, I'm not feeling good. Let me step into the healthcare system. Hey, you know what? I got a cold. Let me step in the healthcare system. Hey, I think I'm having a heart attack. Let me step into the healthcare system. This is the reality that they're facing, that not only are they getting hit in the head because of the inherent racial bias that is just embedded, woven into our system of healthcare, they also have to face the gender bias that gets added on top of them as well. And in medicine, time is everything. So they're diagnosed later. And when you're diagnosed later, guess what happens, right? And that's if you're properly diagnosed. Because again, you have trainees who are running around thinking that, again, this is 2016, y'all, a little bit, not even a decade ago, right? You have trainees walking around who still thought that was a true thing, right? Because their attendings told them that was a true thing. Like this is what the reality that people are walking into. So when I hear people who are just flabbergasted at like, oh, what do you mean they won't go to the doctor? What do you mean they don't trust the science? What do you mean they won't trust the vaccine? Like, what do you mean? Like, that just tells me historically you are not up to date on a population that you're trying to take care of. Because if historically you are up to date, you would understand why there's vaccine hesitancy. You would understand why there's a delay in actually going to see the doctor. You would understand why there's a more of an active approach to not really say all that's going on with them because they don't think people will believe them anyway. And even if they believe them, they think they'll likely misdiagnose them in the first place. There are reasons why. So when you hear this problem, black women dying at a much significant rate than white women on all of these different metrics, you should start asking yourself the biggest question. In my attending, shout out to Dr. Canner, his biggest pimp question was why. Because if you understand the why, then the results make sense. So if you understand all of the racial bias, the gender bias that has been woven within medicine, the mistrust that's been woven within our healthcare system, you understand why they're dying more. You understand why they're being diagnosed later. You understand why they're being misdiagnosed, totally ignored. You understand that. It almost makes sense to you. And you can't believe that other people haven't caught up to that. But this is what we're facing. And this is more importantly what we are going to have to battle. Because this is not going to be like, oh, all right, you just got to deal with it. Especially if I'm in the system. No way I'm in the system and I got mothers, cousins, daughters, sisters. Like, no way I'm in the healthcare system and I'm okay with you being a black woman. Now, all of a sudden, you're at a much higher risk for all of these things here. That wouldn't make any sense in the world for me. That wouldn't make any sense in the world for me to be okay. So I understand I'm going to have to work harder to jump over obstacles that our medical system placed in front of you to get you to the point to trust me and to follow me and let me lead you down to the path of like whatever health nirvana you're looking for, right? I understand that I got hoops to jump through and I'm happy to jump through those said hoops because if I don't, right, the numbers speak for themselves. For many black women, getting into the healthcare system, right, just stepping into it almost feels like a battleground. Like they got to be ready to go to war. They got to be ready to defend their position because it is I want to say like it's life or death. No, because it is a life or death decision. And when you get to that point where before we even meet, you already have to be on your defenses. There's no way you can let your guard down. There's no way you're going to be able to build a true connection of trust because you understand that like I got to go into this field over here where they may not believe what I'm telling them. They may not believe that I'm in the pain that I'm in, that I'm having a chest discomfort, chest pain. And I hate to say that it has to be a famous presentation, but that's unfortunately how it typically works. Serena Williams, right? Serena Williams was in a hospital after having a baby and was complaining of shortness of breath and chest pain, right? I can assure you, almost like 1 + 1 = 2. If you gave a test question and say, hey, I have a female patient who just gave birth to a baby, but now they're complaining of shortness of breath and chest pain, everyone would think it's a blood clot. Every single person would think it was a blood clot, right? Because in no other state are you more likely to develop a blood clot than when you're pregnant. Everyone would think it's a blood clot. But even Serena Williams, probably the greatest tennis champion we've ever seen, right? I'm not talking man or just total tennis champion we've ever seen. She has a fight for it because they didn't believe her. They try to ignore it. They try to downplay it. This is the battle that many women are facing, especially black women are facing, right? And I always want to make sure I keep prefacing the black women part, right? This is the battle that they're facing. And I can't walk into their shoes. I'm not a black woman, right? So I'll never be able to understand what they're going through, but I know what the numbers tell me. And the numbers are not good. The numbers are not on their side. If I'm not willing to advocate the way I need to advocate for them, then I'm just adding to the problem. And that's one thing. I didn't get into medicine to add to the problem. I got into shine a light to say, hey, this is what's going on, y'all. This is what y'all need to take care of. This is what y'all need to get better doing. Because if I don't know how many of my other colleagues will, or even feel that they have the obligation to do so. So understand when we talk about this conversation of black women dying, right, in healthcare, we do it because we understand, one, it's a real problem, and two, that we are a part, especially as a healthcare physician, we are a part of the blame because we're a part of the system. So if we're not trying to break up, dismantle the system and the systematic approaches that allow us to get to the point where black women feel like they're stepping on a battlefield just to like talk about their healthcare. Like, what are we really doing here? Like, what are we really doing? And how can we say we're a champion of all and trying to take care of the folks of the greater good, like we all said in our personal statements, trying to get into medical school, if we're not really trying to do that? All right, so here, Dr. Pierre, this is the time where I know you about to tell me, like, what can we do about it, right? Because that's the most important thing, right? At the end of the day, you watch the show, right? Shout out to my lunch learners, right? Make sure you subscribe. At the end of the day, you watch the show because you're trying to figure out, like, all right, I see the problem because Dr. Pierre done dropped another problem on us. What are solutions? I think first things first, right? Preparation, right? We have to, again, when I talk about this battlefield, we have to prepare for our appointment, right? We have to be ready to write down the symptoms, questions, when it occurred, how it occurred. This is how I'm feeling. And we have to stick to like, hey, because they'll, I know some of my docs, I don't know why they do it. They'll hear one thing and then they'll blurt out another thing. So they hear you said chest pain. Okay, are you having like an upset stomach? It's like, no, I'm having chest pain, right? Like we have to be very diligent on that, right? If you can, right? If it's possible, have people who are there in support of you, whether it be someone who comes to the office visit with you or someone like myself who is able to kind of audit the conversation after the fact. I do that a lot, especially when my mom goes to the doctor's appointment. Hey, what did that doctor say? If I don't understand, if I feel like she doesn't understand what the doctor said, I make the phone call. Hey, yeah, my mom just saw you. Well, like, what did y'all want to do? Because she wasn't really, and you'd be surprised, right? You would be surprised. Of course, I didn't do it, right? Hopefully. You'd be surprised how many doctors allow their patients to just leave a room, right? And not fully digest what's going on. One of my questions I always ask when I do outpatient medicine, but even now, is, all right, do you understand everything that we talked about today? And then you just stay silent. And you'll be surprised how many patients will be like, I do not. Right. I understand. All right. Let me know how we can simplify this so you can understand. Right. Like it's a simple question. A lot of doctors don't like to ask it. Right. Because it may keep them in the room a minute longer, maybe. Right. If they're good, it should only be a minute. But I always like to ask, like, all right, do you understand everything we talked about today? Right. I want to know that you do, and not just like, yes, I do. All right. So tell me, because they'll try to get out of it. All right. Yes. Oh, yeah, I do. All right. So tell me, what are we going to do? Right. I want to know. Right. I want you to be able to explain to me because I know you're going to have a Dr. Pierre, like probably waiting for you at home who's going to ask you. And I don't want him to call me. Right. So have a trusted partner you can always rely on if you can to either come to the office with you or have that feedback that you can bounce off, especially when you're not getting your questions. I love the resources. Right. You know me, I'm a big resource partner in regards to just making sure that your questions are well defined, right? That you're not asking like off wall questions. Your doctor can kind of like hone in on really what's going on because you don't want your doctor to be confused. And then more importantly, know your rights, right? You can always ask for a second opinion. You can always ask to review your medical records. You can always ask to change providers if this wall just isn't like, if it's not moving, right? If the gap just isn't like, our trust gap is not closing, you might have to go. Because again, if you can't trust the person who's responsible for taking care of you, right? That's a life or death issue, right? Like if you can't trust the person who's responsible for managing your blood pressure, your diabetes, your cholesterol, your thyroid issues, your pregnancy, if you can't trust that person, that's life or death. We can't play that game. We don't have the ability. This is not a video game. We don't get like, all right, this life number 2, I'll just eat a green mushroom. And I'm like, we don't have that ability to do so, right? So we have to understand that trust has to be there. And that trust isn't there. We have to do everything we can. And again, I say the patients, but the doctors are just as important. The nurse practitioners, the PAs, just as important in making sure that they close that gap as well. And then, of course, and let's not forget, support advocacy groups, online, avenues like, the Lunch Learn with Dr. Berry, Medicine Mondays with Dr. Berry, where you're able to kind of like, oh, I heard him say this. I heard him say that. All right, let me make sure I write that down. So when I go see my doctor, I can go seeing a little bit more informed of what's going on, right? Because information is everything. Information is important. And more importantly, information could be a life or a death thing, right? If you lack the information needed to be able to voice your issues, voice your concerns, you can get misdiagnosed, undiagnosed, discriminated against, and that could cost you your life. And we don't want that, not anymore. Because I gotta be honest, y'all, one of the things that we fall into, right, and now I'm talking to Black women in general, right, one of the issues that we fall into, right, is we are accepting of this inadequate care. We just accept it because we say, this is just the norm. They don't listen to me, that's normal. They don't listen to my issues, that's normal. They don't follow up appropriately, that's no. Like, we can no longer accept inadequate care because we know now it means life or death. Everything means life or death. I tell people all the time, especially as a physician, when they ask me how I'm doing, I say, I'm fine. They say, what you do today? I say, I just say the few lies, right? Because that's really what I'm doing, right? I say that jokingly, but like in all serious, I recognize that the decisions I make can make or break you. And when I say break you, AKA make sure you're still here or cause the reason why you're not here. Right. I understand that. So as a patient, as a consumer, as the customer, we can't accept inadequate care. If we went to one of these coffee shops, Starbucks or what was it, Seven Brew? There's one around here in South Florida called Seven Brew. My wife likes that. If they were giving us inadequate service, if they kept messing up our order, we wouldn't keep going to them. We would find somewhere else to go to, or we would complain up. We say, hey, I've asked for this, whatever I don't drink coffee. So whatever the coffee order is, I've asked for it this certain way 3 times in a row. 3 times in a row, they mess it up. Somebody got to do better, right? We shouldn't let it go to 3 times in a row, but some of y'all are allowing yourselves to get burnt multiple times over and just accepting that, oh, this is the norm. This is the norm. It's a norm that, they don't pay me no mind. It's a norm that they ignore me. It's no more norms. You're also assuming, and I gotta say this, I gotta be honest. We're assuming cultural competency is there just because the person may look like us. We're assuming that, hey, I have a black physician. They understand what I'm going through. They're going to take care of me. No, cultural competency is not something that is only beholden to the person just because they happen to be of the same race. No. Especially, it's a numbers game, right? Let's be honest, it's a numbers game. There's not that many black physicians out here. So even if all the black physicians wanted to take care of all the black patients, they couldn't do so anyway, right? They couldn't do so. It's just a numbers game. So understand that the likelihood of you having care for someone who doesn't look like you is going to be extremely high. So just like we won't assign a person who's not of race to have like the greatest cultural competency and the need to learn, we shouldn't do that to our black physicians as well. Because some of them could do better. Some of them could do better. I'll just leave it like that. Some of them can do a lot better. So I understand cultural competency is not just a one size fit all just because it happens because, like I said, bias, because of bias, right? Because that person could be a black physician, but they can still have gender bias. Right. They can still have some racial bias too. It's possible. Right. They think about it. So never hesitate to ask follow-up questions. Don't feel guilty about switching your doctors, asking for second opinions, and document everything. I love when they document. A lot of my physician colleagues don't like it. Right. I love when you document, right? Because 1, I know what I'm doing. And 2, I know I'm doing stuff correctly. So you documenting me doing stuff correctly doesn't bother me, right? I got some patients in some of my nursing homes where because their families live there, right? They would have like Ring cameras. I'm saying hi to the Ring camera. Why not? I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. That don't bother me just because they can see me. It only bothers the people who aren't doing what they're supposed to do, right? So document everything. Shout out. I don't suggest you go putting Ring cameras in your places though. A lot of my facilities don't allow you to do that. So I'm just throwing it out there. And to the end, y'all. To the end. We're almost here. Understand black women are not broken, right? It's the system. Understand that, no, they aren't just happen to be more susceptible to dying from cervical cancer and all these maternal complications. No, it's the system. And if you recognize that it's the system, we shouldn't necessarily be, preaching like what black women need to do. We need to preach what does the system need to do? Because the system is broken. It's been broken. It was, you know what? Let me take that back. I take that back. And this may be it should be controversial, but it is. I don't think the system is broken. The system is working exactly how it was built. It was built to be biased against black folks. It was built to be biased against women. So if you think it's been built to be biased against people who are just black and people who just happen to be women, like what do you think that system is going to be doing to people who happen to be black women who falls into both groups? Yeah, the system is working perfectly. And that's what those in healthcare, those inside the system and those outside the system are working to break down so that even you don't have to be Serena Williams to be a pregnant woman saying, hey, I'm having shortness of breath. And for someone to think like, hey, you know what? I think you might have a blood clot. Let me scan you. It shouldn't be that way.